hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality. While listening, you'll be exposed to inspiring, empowering, and unifying perspectives that I'm highly confident will yield stellar results in your life if you opt to try them on for size. Also, at optimistic.tv, we have officially begun releasing the first few episodes of our new late-night style, consciousness-elevating video variety talk show, Optimistic, which features live visionary art, soul share interviews, retreat guests here at the Mystic Manor, as well as live musical performances. I'm also super excited to announce that we are currently making plans to release the rest of Season 1 on my personal favorite online streaming service. So stay tuned to optimistic.tv to follow the unfolding development of this exciting Optimistic expansion, as we'll be posting more info and release dates there soon. And in the meantime, be sure to check out, of course, the first few episodes at optimistic.tv as well. All right, all you positive heads, welcome. Here we grow again. So grateful to be back with you guys as always. It is a magical Monday here in the studio as I record. And today I want to talk about something that is a little bit more of a challenging topic, the shadow. The idea that the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. This part of the self and the human condition that we oftentimes want to sort of gloss over or look away from, right? Darkness or evil or any of that stuff is, out there, separate and apart from ourselves. Or if it's a part of ourselves where we've done anything that is, from the shadow self, repressed and not accepted and, pushed down. And today I want to talk about lightening up, shining a light on the darkness, because that's really what darkness is, right? The absence of light. And, this idea, as Carl Jung, who talked a lot about the shadow self, right? He says, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And that is a really, really powerful thing to consider and a brave thing to do, to consider going down this idea, down this path of, facing the darkness. But it's something throughout history, obviously we have here in the land of duality, life on planet Earth, we have, male, female, up, down, left, right, light, darkness, right? And so, going back, you've seen all throughout the great teachers and texts. Even, like the Bible, the book of Psalms says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. And, referring that God is with you, even when you're facing evil, which, of course, spelled inversed is live, right? So it's a part of the equation, right? Even earlier today, working on my new book, I was looking up writing a little bit about etymology and how the meaning of things are hidden in words. And one of the things I was talking about is universe, right? Uni and verse. And when you break those down, uni, of course, meaning one, and verse, looking it up, was, one of the definitions was one line in a psalm, right? Just like the book of Psalms that we just synchronistically quoted. And what is a psalm but a sacred song, right? So one verse, one song, one sacred song. part of that equation is the shadow self. And it's one of those things, once you learn to sit down and invite your demons to tea, right? It's more about integrating this part of yourself and understanding that without the shadow, there can't be the light. They're a dance. The higher the branches, the deeper the roots, right? The brighter the light, the darker the shadow. Jung also said, how can I be substantial without casting a shadow? I must have a dark side too if I am to be whole. And by becoming conscious of my shadow, I remember once more that I am a human being like any other. And this whole idea became really famous. Robert Louis Stevenson wrote the very famous story Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where it came, speaking of the unconscious is our shadow, right? A lot of times it's stuffed into our unconscious. Well, in the dream state, the unconscious can rise to the surface. And Robert Louis Stevenson had this dream about a man who drank a powder, and then his dark side came out. And so, that was the inspiration for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which of course Dr. Jekyll was this very upstanding, member of society, and Mr. Hyde was his more primitive, dark self, right? That would come out, in the story. And, Robert Louis Stevenson said, I learned to recognize the thorough and primitive duality of man. I saw that of the two natures that contended in the field of my consciousness, even if I could rightly be said to be either, it was only because I was radically both. Plato said, there is in every one of us, even those who seem to be most moderate, a type of desire that is terrible, wild, and lawless. And, on and on and on. I mean, all the Nietzsche, for fear of wild animals that hath been longest fostered in man, inclusive of the animal which he concealeth and feareth in himself. Zarathustra called it the beast inside. So, once again, it's been referenced throughout, history and by all these great minds and philosophers and teachers. And what I want to do is help to shine a light on the darkness and to realize that your soul is a part of it all. You've experienced all of it at some point, whether in this lifetime, whether you did something awful yesterday, whether it was 20 years ago and it's, eating you alive because you realize now that was not the right thing to do. Maybe it was in another lifetime where you did something very, very awful, right? It's at some point, it's somewhere in the journey of separation from source and experiencing yourself as a, soul incarnating in 3D, you have encountered, experienced, been on every side, dark side, light side. And once you can understand and appreciate this idea of why it's happening, it's ultimately happening for love. It's ultimately happening for the good. And for love to have any meaning, there has to be, as I'm going to play a clip here in a few moments from Alan Watts, actually, where he talked about this. He said, look, for the play to play out, you need the villain. And so this is the villain of creation, right? But it has a very, ultimately a positive reason for existing so that love can experience being a choice, right? So you can come up against all these parts of yourself and integrate and become a truly holy person, right? Whole, right? And integrate all this part of yourself. And instead of beating yourself up for what you have or haven't done, realizing that was a necessary part of the journey for you to become, the loving, kind person that you are now. Because I know there's a lot of you out there listening who, there's a lot of guilt for things that you have or haven't done in the past. And it's this perspective of beating yourself up for something that you didn't know or understand at that time. I mean, I can think back to, killing little caterpillars or a mouse or doing things now that, I catch everything and let it go, Well, besides mosquitoes. And, it's like I don't want to harm anything. But at one time I sort of had this, I can think back to being a little boy and having this kind of like, what is this? I look at it now and I'm like, whoa, who was that twisted little kid that wanted to like drown a mouse or, go around and kill all these caterpillars that were all in the house, or, just things that, you think of little kids a lot of times, they'll do these kind of twisted things like, hold on, where is this coming from? It's a part of our being. And in anything that you resist, you can't integrate, and you can't, like I said, make it a part of the ultimate expression of who you're meant to be. These are, the same way the caterpillar destroys the plants, that pain and destruction it causes is necessary for the birth of the butterfly. And that's really the best metaphor I can find to explain this process. And so not integrating the evil so that you can truly live is a rejection of self, and really is going to stunt our growth along the way, right? So let's take a moment here and listen to Alan Watts, one of my favorite philosophers, talking about this topic, exploring your dark side. This particular clip is called, I found it on the Philosophy and Esoterica YouTube page, and it's Alan Watts. Take a listen.
Everybody should do in their lifetime sometime two things. One is to consider death, to observe skulls and skeletons, and to wonder what it will be like to go to sleep and never wake up. Never. That is a very gloomy thing for contemplation, but it's like manure. Just as manure fertilizes the plants and so on, so the contemplation of death and the acceptance of death is very highly generative of creative life. You get wonderful things out of that. And the other thing to contemplate is to follow the possibility of the idea that you are totally selfish, that you don't have a good thing to be said for you at all. You are a complete, utter rascal. Now, when you go deeply into the nature of selfishness, what do you discover? You say, I love myself, I seek my own advantage. Now, what is the self that I love? What do I want? And that becomes an increasingly ever-deepening puzzle. Now, I've often referred to this when you say to somebody else, I love you. It's always rather disconcerting to the person to whom you say that if you imply that you love them with a pure, disinterested, and holy love. They automatically suspect it as being a little bit phony. But if you say, I love you so much I could eat you, that's an expression, it's a way of saying to a person, you attract me so much that I can't help it. I'm absolutely bowled over by you, I'm gone. And people like that. Then they feel they're really being loved, that it's absolutely genuine. But now, I love you so much I could eat you. Now what the devil do I want? I certainly don't want to eat the girl in the sense of literally devouring her, because then she'd disappear. But I love myself. And what is me? In what way do I know me? Well, it suddenly occurs to me that I know me only in terms of you. And that the main task of the psychotherapist is to do what he called to integrate the evil. To, as it were, put the devil in us in its proper function. Because you see, it's always the devil, the unacknowledged one, the outcast, the scapegoat, the bastard, the bad guy, you see, the black sheep of the family. It's always from that point that generation comes. In other words, in the same way as in the drama, to have the play, it's necessary to introduce a villain. It's necessary to introduce a certain element of trouble. So, in the whole scheme of life, there has to be the shadow, because without the shadow there can't be the substance. So this is why there is a very strange association between crime and all naughty things and holiness. You see, holiness is way beyond being good. Good people aren't necessarily holy people. A holy person is one who is whole, who has, as it were, reconciled his opposites. And so there's always something slightly scary about holy people. And other people react to them in very strange ways. They can't make up their minds whether they're saints or devils. And so holy people have throughout history always created a great deal of trouble, along with their creative results. Let's take Jesus, for example. Trouble that Jesus created is absolutely incalculable. Think of the Crusades, the Inquisition, heaven only knows what's gone on in the name of Jesus. Very remarkable. Freud's a big troublemaker. Jung had a tremendous humor. And he knew that nobody can be completely honest. That you will try and you'll have a great deal of success in exploring your motivations and your dark, unconscious depths. But there will be a certain point at which you will say, well, I've had enough of that. And do you see how, in a strange way, there's a certain sanity in that? When a person indulges in a certain kind of duplicity, of deception, there is something, you all laughed when I said that. There was something humorous about it. And this humor is a very funny thing. Basically, humor is an attitude of laughter about oneself. There is malicious humor, which is laughing at other people. But real deep humor is laughter at oneself. Now, why fundamentally do you laugh about yourself? What makes you laugh about yourself? Isn't it because you know that there is a big difference between what goes on the outside and what goes on the inside? Now, I passed you around a lot of embroidery to look at before we started. And I'm perfectly sure that you got the point. That there's a big difference between the front and the back. In some forms of embroidery, the back is very different from the front because people take shortcuts. In the front, everything is orderly, and it is supposed to be kind of messy on the back side. See, which side will you wear? You've got to be sure you get the front in the front and have the back in the back. The back has all the little tricks in it, all the shortcuts, all the lowdown that people don't acknowledge, see? And it's exactly the same with the way we live. You know, like sweeping the dust under the carpet in a hurry just before the guests come. I mean, we do ever so many things like that. And if you don't do it, if you don't think you do it, and you think, well, really, my embroidery is the same on both sides, see? Well, you're deceiving yourself. Because what you're doing is you're taking the shortcuts in another dimension, which you're keeping out of consciousness. Everybody takes the shortcuts. Everybody plays tricks. Everybody has in himself an element of duplicity, of deception. Because you see, from this point of view that I'm discussing, where the web is the trap, to be is to deceive. Think of camouflage, the chameleon who changes its color. Think of the butterfly pretending it has eyes. Think of the flower saying to the bee, like my honey? Bee says, wow. But then that means that the bee has to be, and it has to go on living, and all the trouble it takes to go around collecting honey and raising other bees and organizing itself and doing that dance which tells the other bees where there's more honey. There's all that stuff to do. But the flower was deceptive. Now, in the same way, I've often said life is a drama, and a drama is a deception. It's a big act. When you peel an onion and you don't really understand the nature of an onion, you might look for the pit in the center, like any ordinary fruit has. But the onion doesn't have a center. It's all skins. So when you get right down, there's nothing but a bunch of skins. You say, well, that was a kind of disappointing. Well, in rather the same way, you see, you find when you explore yourself and your motivations, and you go through and through, and you try to find out that thing which is really genuine. So you explore the onion, and you go in and in and in, and then you find, well, it's all a deception. Now then the question arises, who's deceiving who? Who's fooling who? I'm fooling me? What is fooling? Fooling is playing like you're there when you're not. You know, getting somebody else to answer your name in the roll call. So, we're all, you see, this is the metaphysical basis of it. This is what the Hindus mean by Maya, the world illusion. The world is playing it's there when it isn't. And it's a trap. And it sucks you in. And you can't get out of it. And it's a thorough big trap, too. But always, when you get an idea like this or a feeling like this, follow it to its extreme. Don't back out from it. If you find you're selfish, go to the extreme of what selfishness means. Confusion largely results from not following feelings or ideas to their depth. You know, people think they want to be immortal. They'd like to live forever. Do you really want to do that? Think about it. Really go into it, what it would be like. People say they want this, that, and the other. They want this kind of car, they want this kind of dress, or so on, and this much money, and so on. It's always a good idea to think it right through. What it would involve to be in that situation, to have those desires fulfilled. Also, when you form a relationship to another person, think it through, too. You see? How inconvenient would they be? However attractive. And always turn the embroidery around and look at the underside, but don't get caught doing it. See, that's something one does on the side in secret, because otherwise you play the game that everything is as it's supposed to be on the front. But that makes you humorous, and that makes you human.
Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a quick moment to tell you about our sponsor, KiwiCo. We all know this school year will be unlike any other, whether your kids are going back to school or logging into a classroom from home. And as parents, it can be really time consuming to give your kids the extra help they might need this school year. Well, this company, KiwiCo, can deliver a science fair / art class right to your door, and they have an incredible amount of highly creative do-it-yourself projects for all age ranges. As a huge music fan since about 12 years old, I personally would have loved building the real working light-up speaker and headphones when I was just starting to jam out. As a parent now of a grown-up kid, I wish I had had something like KiwiCo when my son was small, because I remember how hard it can be to find creative and new things to keep him busy and challenged on his own or to tackle together. And not only do they have different crates for kids of all ages, but they send one every month. Now, of course, there's no commitment and you can pause or cancel anytime you like. KiwiCo truly is redefining play with hands-on projects that build confidence, creativity, and critical thinking skills. They have something for every kid or kid at heart, and the best part is all UP heads can get your first month free on select crates at kiwico.com/positivehead. That's KIWICO.com/positivehead. He goes right in for it, right? He's so good. I am selfish. I love myself. I seek my own advantage. And he talks about, this idea, as I mentioned, that for the play to exist, you need the villain. I've referenced this a lot of times. One of my favorite interviews with Dr. Eben Alexander, the Harvard neurosurgeon who got meningitis, went into a coma, was basically, his brain was fried. They pulled the plug and he miraculously came back. And he shared with me, and in his book, his very, well-known book because of who he was, this Harvard brain specialist who all of a sudden came back from the dead and had this experience on the other side, that he shared how things are structured. And he said, I remember him distinctly telling me the villain is oftentimes your greatest ally on the other side, and they agree to play that role so that you can have the experience. If you want to experience forgiveness or overcoming the hardship or the obstacle, and I think of a villain character in my own life who, part of my birthday synchronicity, his grandmother, his baby's mama, same birthday as me. So, these are characters that I'm closely tied to that are playing certain roles. And when you can start to see that, then it takes the sting away to some degree. When you can see that about yourself, it takes the sting away, because that's really the deadliest sting of all, is when the self-judgment and guilt that can eat you alive if you're not careful. There has to be the shadow for substance. You've never seen a painting without shadow in it. You've never seen a beautiful work of art without shadow in it. A holy person is one who is whole and has reconciled their opposites. Everyone has this element of duplicity. I love, how he kind of shared how the butterfly has the fake eye on its wing and all these kind of sort of the subterfuge that happens in nature. And it's really interesting and it makes sense. I never really had thought about that too much, honestly. And it makes a lot of sense when you think about the ultimate deception of all is we think this Maya illusion is real. It's a great big act. It's sort of a deception, if you will. And instead of labeling that as bad, right? In this case, it's one that is serving our soul's evolution, right? So you are like an onion. There's so many layers to you, and not being fearful to really go to the root of who and what you are. I think of my friend who, I think I've shared it before, they had an Aya journey, and I believe it was an Aya journey, if I'm remembering my stories correctly, where they were opening all these doors, to seeing all their different lifetimes. And there was a door that was like, okay, are you ready to see this? I don't know if you're ready, basically. And it was like, this is all the dark, really dark lives you've lived and the dark things you've done, right? And that really jumped out at me when it was shared with me, because, it's like, oh, wow, you have, if you're someone like myself who feels like, oh, I'm really carrying a lot of light codes. I have a lot of light to share. Okay, so does that mean, there's been some deep, dark history? Probably so, somewhere in the soul's journey, right? I think to the book, The Third Millennium, that tells the story of humanity and how we started in physicality, how we started stepping out from being the one and taking on physical forms, and we dissolved back in and out, and it was just this beautiful dance that we were doing and having fun, and we'd relinquish the forms once we sort of had enough or experienced what we had set out to, and we dissolved back into source, right? And then a brilliant, beautiful being came to us and said, and we were blown away by the beauty and magnificence of this being, and said, look, if you want to look and be as radiant as I am, then stay out. Don't go back to source. And then this became like a big controversy, right? Like, this is blasphemy. What? And this is sort of like the devil's journey. Come into physicality, 666, representing physicality. Stay here and go through this, this separation and lose yourself, disconnect from source, which is ultimately hell, right? But on the other side of that, it will make you more, is sort of the point of that being's argument, right? And I believe pretty firmly that you, me, anyone in physicality hearing this, we went for it. We did it. We've walked through the valley of the shadow of death. And it's not something to fear. It's something that's to be integrated. And where you're at now, if you're hearing this, the good news is you've been through. I believe that you've been through those darker chapters. And as maybe they get shown, as the door gets shown to you, perhaps, or you remember something that you did from childhood, or maybe a past life memory comes back to you. That certainly happens to a lot of people that I know. Instead of resisting what it was that was dark, integrating it and understanding and seeing it from a vantage point that makes it understandable why it was necessary, to go through hell. Religion is lived by people who are afraid of hell, right? You've heard this. Spirituality is those who have been through it. And so, not fearing, invite your demons to tea. Being selfish is okay. I call it the good kind of selfish when you understand, whatever I'm doing, I can now start doing things for you because I know you are an extension of me and we're only one, right? And therefore, everybody wins. It's the good kind of selfish. So, self-love, it's the number one most important thing. So why are we, labeling selfishness as bad, right? Let's shift our focus. Let's shift our perspective around that concept. When something dark comes up, laugh at it. You are an untouchable, infinite being, and when you laugh, the devil runs. Essentially, right? This, I believe, is the journey of the soul, and you are a soul on a journey, and I am so glad to be with each and every one of you on this journey. I had a little synchronicity as I was just about to start recording. I was like, oh yeah, I need a song. What should I play? And I looked up, I was like, I haven't played Trevor Hall in a long time. Trevor Hall has a new song. Oh, a new song. What's it called? More Than Love. Oh, let me check this out for a minute. And the lyrics go, we came for more than love, so baby girl, don't you run. Here it is, Trevor Hall. Till next time, I so appreciate each and every one of you, the bravery, the courage to show up and separate from source and hold my hand as we walk each other home. Thank you for being there. I'm here for you. Till next time, journey well. Love you so, so much. Also, before we cue up today's song, I wanted to remind you about the game with the universe on our website, where you can choose the first number that comes to your mind and it'll pull up that episode number of the podcast. I've been saying this is a great way to co-create synchronicity and magic with your higher self for quite some time. And if you go to positivehead.com/universe, there is a super fun and simple interface to play this game with your higher self. I firmly believe just by setting the intention to play in this way, it opens up the door for magic, and it's a synchronistic way to hone in on nuggets of wisdom out of the huge catalog of episodes that are specifically appropriate for you at this time in your journey to becoming the next greatest and greatest version of yourself. And it also makes for a super fun way to spark the curiosity of friends and family by having them choose a number, so they'll hopefully go and check out their number as well, which I greatly appreciate because it helps us to spread the word about the podcast. Once again, the address is positivehead.com/universe. And as a quick reminder, if you're curious to learn more about Purium superfoods and why I take them almost every day, be sure to also check out positivehead.com/transformation. On this journey of becoming the next greatest and grandest version of ourselves that we have all embarked upon, I cannot stress the importance of managing your physical vibration enough. And quite honestly, Purium has put together the simplest plan I've found to do so. I have my favorite, the appleberry shake, at least 5 times a week. Once again, to learn more about the Purium transformation, go to positivehead.com/transformation. Or if you want to keep it simple and just try out my favorite, the Appleberry Shake, you can go straight over to ishoppurium.com and be sure to use code positivehead for 25% off. I'll spell that for you. It's ishoppurium.com, and be sure to use your PositiveHead 25% coupon code.
Love is a battle, at least they told me so. How to surrender, sometimes I never know. The walls up around me, they seem to never fall. Let me some fire so I can burn them all. I know we've been struggling, but here we gotta move. I can still see you now, can you see me too? Remember the rivers and how they merged our hearts, never apart, 'cause we came for more than love. So baby girl, don't you run. We came for more than love. We came for more than love. So baby girl, don't you run. We came for more than love. I can feel the fear on every single breath. Sometimes I feel like I can't take another step. But darling, I'm a soldier, I know that you're a soldier. So let's climb up this mountain and get over all the things that keep us in the shadows, girl. I intend to cut them out of both our worlds. The mirror of the heart, it never lies. Gotta purify our eyes and shine, 'cause we came for more than love. So baby girl, don't you run. We came for more than love. We came for more than love. So baby girl, don't you run. We came for more than love. For more